good evening. You're watching To The Point, and let's quickly cut into the latest news break that we are getting in. Well, after admitting to Galwan casualties, finally, China has now released a June 15th bloody clash video after the fake claim of just 4 casualties. Now, there's a face-saving video that China has unveiled. The video of Galwan clash, first footage ever of the Galwan incident, has been released. China using this clip purely as propaganda to hide its dead. Global embarrassment for Chinese army coming in at this juncture. This video has now been released by China. Let's try and dip in to get in a larger understanding of what transpired on the ensuing nights of 15th and 16th June 2020 when the Galwan clashes took place. I want to immediately cut across right now to my colleagues Shiv Arur joining me from the newsroom. I have Abhishek Bhalla getting us the very latest and Gaurav Sawant who's getting us up to speed with all that's taking place. He's joining us from Ladakh. Gaurav, I'll come to you first. You were closely tracking the developments in Galwan. After finally admitting to casualties of a figure of 4, China releasing this video of the Galwan clash. The first ever video, Gaurav.
This indeed is, and it's a part of a very elaborate information warfare that China is waging at this point of time. China is on the back foot after the Russian agency TASS put out a report last week that said that 45 Chinese soldiers had been killed in action in the Galwan clashes as against 20 of ours in context of the disengagement that was taking place. And that's a huge embarrassment for the Communist Party of China and the Chinese army, the PLA. This is the first admission of the Chinese army that they've suffered military casualties in operations after the 1979 Vietnam War, which was a major debacle for the Chinese. Now, in order to explain Chinese casualties, while they claim only 5 have been awarded so far. One of them is a battalion commander. 4 others are soldiers and posthumous. They are not saying that others haven't died. They're just saying that 5 have been recognized so far, 1 living, 4 posthumous. China usually, Preeti, gives out information much later about military casualties. But the video that you see is a part of China's propaganda war or information warfare, which is extremely crucial in the 21st century warfare, where it's attempting to show that its soldiers were unarmed and it's the other military, in this case the Indian army, that went in, as you can see in some of these images. But this is only half the story. The Indian army had to go into the Galwan river only in a certain situation after China had carried out their operation in which we lost Colonel Santosh Babu and 3 of our braves who were defending Colonel Santosh Babu. So because we have access to the bigger picture, we can tell our viewers that China is playing very elaborate information warfare games, giving just half truths. This happened after China had come into our territory and carried out that operation in which we lost Colonel Santosh Babu and some of our braves. This is the second part of the operation. As Shiv has reported in the past, that operation that night happened in 3 phases.
Right. Stay on with me, Gaurav. I want to pull in Shiv and Abhishek as well into this conversation. Shiv, a propaganda video at that. Can you explain that video? The 16 Bihar regiment lost 20 of its brave, 3 the first night, including the CO, which is Colonel Babu of 16 Bihar regiment. Can you talk us through this video, Shiv?
Yes, Preeti, this, I want to be as objective as possible because this is, after all, the lives of military personnel on both sides, and there is a propaganda war that's going on that China is waging against India even during this disengagement. To get everything right, first of all, it is not India's claim that 45 Chinese soldiers have been killed in Galwan. It is Russia, and Russia happens to be a close ally of China, a diplomatic friend of China's, and it is basically the state-owned Russian news agency TASS which has put out this figure of 45 dead. It's not India's claim. So China can't defend that. India actually believes the number is somewhat higher than 45. So while China has for the first time admitted to casualties in Galwan, they've completely faked the number because of the embarrassment caused by their own friend, the Russians, outing that number. Now, in the face of the all the embarrassment that has mounted on China after the Russian expose on the casualties of the Chinese, they've had to save face a little bit, because you've had the Indian Army's northern commander endorse that figure. You've had, a large part of the media climb onto this story and kind of make fun of China for making this ludicrous claim that only 5 people actually lost their lives on their side in Galwan, when the number was at least 16, because that was the number of bodies in the situation report published by the Indian Army on the day of the clash. So this video is very much in keeping with the propaganda playbook of the Chinese. It's well edited. It depicts the hostility and aggression that was clearly on display on that night, and the fact that so many men had to lose their lives on both sides is a shame for both countries, Preeti, especially since they were actually supposed to be talking disengagement at that time. So this video, the claims being made by China are nothing but propaganda, and I'm being as objective as possible.
Well, Shiv, the fact, yes, propaganda, they faked their numbers very clearly. They haven't quite admitted to the exact number. They've honored 4. But Shiv, I'll come back to this video and I'll bring in Abhishek as well. Propaganda, yes, but these are pretty much the first moving images that we have seen of what really transpired those 2 nights. And if you look at the video, it really does go from day to night. And then you've got, pictures coming in of the day again.
Preeti, 2 back-to-back developments from the Chinese side, extremely important because the timing is so interesting. There's the 10th round of the core commander level talks scheduled for tomorrow. We are talking disengagement. We have been told that the first phase of the disengagement in the Pangong Lake is over, and that's the reason why the core commanders are meeting again to discuss an overall disengagement, another friction points like Gogra, Hot Springs and Depsang. So on the eve of this all-important talk, when one can say that we can expect easing of tensions, once again China brings back what happened on 15th of June in Galwan. Obviously, the video seems quite authentic. Nobody has challenged it till now. But the fact that when both the countries are talking of disengagement, de-induction and a final de-escalation to the situation, once again, this video perhaps might flare tempers or provoke either side, which could lead to further tensions.
Well, Gaurav, this is done by design also, isn't it? The release of this video, the admittance of, casualties by China, at the back of some of the visuals that played out exclusively right here in India today of the disengagement and Chinese troops pulling back.
Information warfare is very critical to China. Propaganda war. They have an entire ministry. They have an entire arm in their army to take care of propaganda and information warfare. Chinese media, incidentally, is a part of their state. Chinese Communist Party runs, it owns website, it owns television channels, it funds television channels across the world. So China plays a very, very elaborate information warfare game across the globe. This is a part of that information warfare game that China is playing at this point of time, trying to show itself to be the aggrieved party, though in reality China was the aggressor that day on the evening of June 15, 2020. Here China has given out one part of the story where Indian forces went in for an operation to rescue some of our people, also to ensure that the Chinese maintain status quo ante at Galwan. It's the Chinese who violated, it's the Chinese who've come in. But before the 10th round of talks, now that disengagement has already taken place on the south bank of Pangong. So Chinese are trying to put out these information warfare games. They're good at it. What they do not realize is that the world by and large has seen through their games. And it's the Russians, as Shiv has pointed out, who outed the Chinese on 45 fatalities in the Chinese army. And this is causing trouble inside China because veterans are unhappy, Chinese soldiers are unhappy. They've lost 45 soldiers and only 5 have been recognized, and that too only now. If you recall, 1979, the casualties that China suffered in Vietnam, they haven't made that public. 1962 casualties that China suffered in India-China war were only made public in the 1990s. So very clearly, China plays a lot of games, both internally and externally, and this is a part of that information warfare game that China's attempting to play.
I'll bring in Shiv back into this conversation, Gaurav. Shiv, for a state machinery that runs so high on propaganda, China releasing this video, it's come from China. What are they trying to prove? One, of course, that India was the aggressor. You can see the 16th Bihar Regiment right now in the river. Is that one of the points that China is trying to make?
You know something, Preeti, I'll answer that question in just a moment if you let me. But I just want to tell you that for the last 8 months, China has said nothing about its casualties on Galwan. The only thing it has said is either we have not had any casualties or that we don't want to reveal the number because we don't want to embarrass the Indians, when embarrassing India through propaganda has been their main focus. That's point number one. Point number two, they only come out with this fake claim of 4 dead and this video that's come out right now after the Russians have opened their mouths about the casualty figures. Mind you, India has had many different numbers published, none of them official, but China has never reacted to them. They've literally only reacted once the Russians opened their mouths. Let me give our viewers and you an example, Preeti. Suppose you and I were enemies, fighting over something. I'm calling you a horrible person, you're calling me a horrible person, and that's looked at as propaganda. But if a third person who happens to be your best friend then calls you a horrible person, how do people then look at that? It's literally that's happening right here, where Russia, which is an ally and a diplomatic friend of China, has intervened and said, hey, hello, 45 people have died on your side. And that's the reason why China has completely gone into a fluster and said, oh my God, this is not India saying it, this is Russia saying it, and they've got no hand in this, and they're our friend, and that's why this damages us. That's why they were forced to break their silence despite the disengagement, put out this honoring ceremony for 4 martyrs of Galwan, and then put out this video. That's the only reason, and we need to be clear about that.
All right, okay, stay with me, Shiv. Abhishek, the fact that we were talking about the timing of it, visuals played out of the pullback by China in Pangong just about 2 days ago, some of them exclusively right here. When you talk about the timing, are we expecting now a response by the Indian counterpart? Because till now, we haven't really said anything. Even the Indian government has only quoted what Russia has said right now.
Well, there surely will be some kind of a discussion over these kind of things, perhaps in the meeting tomorrow, because, India has been extremely hopeful of how things have panned out in the last 10 days or so when the disengagement was announced. And in fact, things have happened quite smoothly, and there hasn't been quite a problem. There were apprehensions that, during the disengagement process, there could be some difference of opinions, but all of that really hasn't happened, and things have moved quicker than what was anticipated. And not just the troops, but even tanks and weapon systems have been pulled back. And there is a situation where troops who are barely a few meters away, 50 to 70 meters away, creating a very, very volatile situation, have finally pulled back. So the thinning of troops from those friction points, be it the hilltops of Finger 4 or the southern bank around Richenla, where even tanks had moved in. So now with this video, there is a sense that, once again, these things could be discussed during those meetings, which could be a problem. We hope it isn't, but we'll have to wait and watch how India responds to this video.
It's interesting. It's interesting what you say
for the future.
Right. It's interesting what you say. Shiv, I'll come back to you. How will this video as well now clear the pitch where India stands with China? Because somehow you finally saw some kind of disengagement, movement forward, and once again, propaganda at that, but it's still out there.
You know, Preeti, we've just heard from the foreign office of China where they've, they've sort of expressed distaste over this fight over casualty numbers, even though it is China which was the initiator of this particular propaganda. It was not India. It was actually Russia which commented on it. But it's a very good question because I don't see the Indian External Affairs Ministry or the Indian Army commenting or responding or engaging on this topic because they've had their say. You had Lieutenant General Y.K. Joshi in that exclusive to Gaurav Sawant a couple of days ago, talk about the Galwan incident. He's talked about all other aspects. And the good thing is that the disengagement in Pangong has been very, very successful. So your question is really a good one because will this actually affect what's happening on the ground? I don't think so because China, as Gaurav said, is a country which places a great deal of primacy and importance on its image, on propaganda, on information warfare. So we need to be very wary of that, and that's what we're countering here on India Today. A large part of the media has countered it as well, but I think on the ground, the army is doing its work. I don't think it's going to get diverted with trying to counter this information warfare. It's been going on for a very long time, and it's not going to stop no matter what happens.
All right, gentlemen, appreciate you joining us for that quick update. We're going to leave our viewers with these visuals. China now in damage control mode after the Russian news agency reported 45 Chinese soldiers died in 2020 Galwan clashes, which is what we were talking about earlier. China has accepted that 4 of its soldiers died in the clash nearly 8 months after the standoff. Here's
8 months after the deadly clash in Ladakh's Galwan Valley, 8 months after India publicly told the world it had lost 20 army heroes, including a commanding officer. After 8 months of China dodging and ducking any conversation about its own casualty figures, the country was forced to dive into emergency damage control mode today. In an apparent breaking of silence, the Chinese government today announced that it had honored 4 martyrs in Galwan, as if to suggest that only 4 army men had died in the clash on June 15th last year. But China's announcement isn't really an announcement at all, but rather a fumbling attempt to troubleshoot after being exposed by its own close ally and friend, Russia. Just 9 days ago, Russian government-owned news agency TASS published with categorical clarity that the Chinese side had lost 45 soldiers in Galwan, a figure never previously published. This was followed by India's Northern Army commander endorsing the figure on the record and even suggesting that the number could be higher.
While China has been dismissing Indian claims as propaganda by the Indian army, it could not dodge what its old ally Russia had to say, and especially when the claim now comes from a Russian government agency. It was almost as if Vladimir Putin made an announcement to the world that 45 Chinese army men were killed in Galwan.
And that is the context of today's burst of damage control propaganda by China. But there are 2 more points to consider.
Chinese state-owned propaganda machinery and media had earlier claimed they did not make public the casualty figures in China because they did not want to embarrass India previously. But the naked truth is, embarrassing India is exactly what China's agenda has been throughout in Ladakh.
And finally, no matter what the final figure of Chinese fatal casualties in Galwan is, there's no doubt in anyone's mind that the number cannot, under any circumstances, be less than 16. That was the number of confirmed Chinese dead recorded by the Indian Army at the clash site on that very day, and duly recorded in an official situation report. 8 months after the Galwan clash, a bleeding reminder of a terrible escalation during disengagement, China proving once again that propaganda will always be a priority. With Abhishek Bhalla in Delhi and Gaurav Sawant in Leh, Ladakh, Bureau Report, India Today.
Hi everyone, Preeti Chaudhary here. Hope you like this video. For latest news and analysis, like and subscribe to the India Today YouTube channel. And don't forget to press the bell icon to stay updated. Thank you for watching.